dear to my heart and helping military men and women find employment after the fact. Moved very quickly into technical recruiting, IT recruiting. So a large and full-bodied experience in recruiting. And I am very interested in helping anyone who is struggling or would like the advice in order how to really conquer an interview and get into the job market.
Thank you, Max. Darren?
Yes, my name is Darren Skinner. I am currently the Senior Technical Talent Acquisition Specialist for a company called DNS Filter, which is a cybersecurity firm. I actually began my career in technical recruiting with a company called Mondo about 7.5 years ago, and have really progressed as more of a contract recruiter, more of a mercenary recruiter, as I call it, moving within these companies to fill their high-level positions, their purple squirrels and yellow unicorns, if you will. I've been able to move into management. I've led global teams. I put together large talent acquisition strategies for global companies. And right now I'm at a place in my career where I'm working with a startup firm to really get a firm implant on what they're trying to do in terms of building out their technical talent, both software development, data science, and development in general. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Darren. Appreciate you. Yeah. Now we're going to move to the questions. And Max, if you want to take the second question on the list.
Okay, beg your pardon. Just have to get my computer back up. Kind of working as I'm doing this as well. Sorry, guys.
It happens. We appreciate your time. We know this is a volunteering.
Okay. So question 2, what skills / qualities do I, or it says you, look for when recruiting students and recent graduates? So as far as the skills necessary, I know that aligning yourself with what you're best at is really crucial. And the reason why I say that as a student is because typically what tends to happen in the job market when people enter is they may be really a great subject matter at something, we'll say IT, right? And then they make their kind of entry with the skill sets kind of piecemeal as they see in the job description. And then they start to kind of say, okay, well, I also can do this. And I know that I'm really good at this too. But I've never really done it before, but I also like to do this. The understanding should be that the job description that's out there is maybe a 60% of what the hiring manager is really looking for. And that's typically about what I see, right? The other 40% is going to be in an entry-level setting for students. Are they coachable, moldable, trainable? Do they have a good acumen? And do they possess the ability to be accountable? Okay. And because you guys are entering the workforce, those things are still in place, but the managers have an expectation that you're going to come in with a specific level of knowledge based on the job description. Okay. So aligning yourself properly to the job description is crucial. And what I also look for is, how does that student articulate their experience and segue that into the need of the hiring manager? So those needs are not just the hiring managers, they're the business needs and they're the expectation of the manager above them. So when you're going to enter a workforce, aligning properly to the skill set that you're best at, as well as being coachable, moldable, trainable, and having the understanding that soft skills are adamantly important, but as well as delivering on promise, because the perspective of the hiring manager is that they're going to be taking a chance on you. So really providing them as much information on how well you've done what you've done is crucial. And Darren, if you want to add to that.
I absolutely 100% agree. I think that work ethic, if I was going to piggyback on anything from the previous, I think that work ethic is one thing that is very, very real. And it's a hard thing to gauge as a recruiter, just on a very basic call. But one of the questions that get asked a lot is, what do you do in your free time? What are your hobbies? And it's always a good time to, talk about the things that you like. But what recruiters are trying to do in that situation is also see, more of a tinkering mindset. Do you do some of the things that are required on the job? Do you try to research some of those things on your own time? Are you looking to expand your skill set outside of just that 9 to 5, or are you just looking for a job? And, there are a lot of situations where, having more of that 9 to 5 mindset is perfectly fine. But again, as you're talking about, as was just previously stated by Max, as you're talking about really finding that career field that is yours and not just bouncing around, try to figure out a way to actually expand your skill set outside of that 9 to 5. And there are a lot of areas to be able to do that don't cost an extravagant amount of money. Google is an outstanding resource. And I've been telling people this for years, that you can learn anything on Google and on YouTube. And I know that sounds weird, but it is very, very true. And at least having the basic mindset or the basic requirements of any type of skill set is something that is good to have in terms of what you're trying to find that very specific career set. So I agree with everything Max said. And I think that, the only thing I would add, like I said, is to try to find something outside of that 9 to 5, so that when you're asked those questions, you can at least provide some feedback on what you like to do outside of just your work.
So Darren, I'm going to ask you additional questions. So you mentioned that they do need to expand. So what type of skills they do need to gain when they watch those YouTube videos? What skills? So,
that's a good question. For example, if we are going to talk about IT, software development is something that I think a lot of people want to get into, but they think that, I didn't go to college for computer science, so I can't get into it. Or, I have to take a class or a certification that's going to cost me thousands of dollars. And, I have to save up for that. And it seems like this long, far about goal, but you can learn the very basics of Java development, Python development, C++, C#, .NET. You can learn all of these very basic skill sets just by coding on your computer. You can do it yourself, and it's very easy to do. If you just follow the videos, you can take notes yourself. It's extremely easy to learn those basics. And you're not going to become a great software engineer by watching YouTube videos, no, but you will be able to talk about it at a level that people can understand. And it's a situation where you can interview and apply for some of these low-level positions without having that experience or without having a computer science degree. And you can go into getting these certifications while already having the knowledge, so you don't have to pay those thousands of dollars for the certification classes that lead up to it. So it can really put you on a path to figuring out that next career step without having to pay thousands of dollars to do that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Darren. Great feedback. Max, do you want to add anything to this?
Darren, that's a great point. I worked previously, when I did the first one of these, I was at a company called Skillstorm. And Skillstorm is they're kind of a twofold company. One, they help military veterans get certified in like Pega, AWS, Salesforce, ServiceNow type certifications. But oftentimes, even before getting considered, we ask them, what are the 4 pillars of OOP? What are the 4 pillars of object-oriented programming? And even if they just knew them, right, we actually knew that they had done some studying, right? Because that understanding and that seeking that knowledge is the groundwork for any type of programmer. Because just like you said, are they intuitive? Do they want to kind of seek out those? Are they kind of puzzle people, right? That's the kind of people that we sought after, because we had the ability to give them the resources. And there are so many out there, just like you said, to learn how to be a programmer, Java developer, coding, thousands of resources. But what we can't provide you is the drive, right? The ability to say, you know what, I could either hit the beach or I could hit my laptop and get a couple hours in, right? So really put forth the work up front, because it pays off on the back end. I promise you it does.
Wow. Thank you. So besides those work ethics as a drive and making sure they are dependable, what other soft skills they need to have? What are you looking for? How do you find that within the prospect?
That's an interesting question. I think, as you talk about soft skills, communication skills just kind of come to mind. So you have to be able to know how to talk to people. And again, I know that's a really weird thing to say because we all know how to speak to each other, right? But in a way to convey your message across multiple audiences so that it's accepted the same way across multiple audiences, that's kind of the key in this, especially as we talk about this virtual world that we're in now. It was much easier when you were sitting in an office and you could read body language. You were able to kind of be a little bit more animated in the way that you talk. But in this virtual environment, to be able to connect, to try to make eye contact with your computer, to be a little bit more engaging, and to try to read facial expressions, it's a little bit different now, but it's a very, very big key thing in terms of being able to engage with stakeholders, engage with members of the executive suite, people that you actually want to talk to in that high visibility, to be able to try to move up and to have that, if your aspirations take you there. Again, the communication skills are a very big thing to solidify early on.
Absolutely. Max, I see you like,
yeah.
Yes.
So one of the things that I really love to try to convey to anyone that asks me is mastering the interview, because perspectively, right, I would like to convey or impart that your resume has done its job. If you get a phone call or you're asked to interview, your resume has completed its task. It's garnered the interest. It's said you have at least these skills on paper. So when you go into an interview, be prepared to talk about anything on your resume because it's all fair game, but also go in with the mindset that the resume, they have met the resume, but they haven't met you yet, right? So when you're in an interview, instead of regurgitating what's on your resume when they ask you questions, be able to provide a continuation either in experience in terms of hard skills or collaboration in terms of soft skills. Okay, so if you've worked at X amount of at X company for X amount of time, you can elaborate either on the tasks that you did by utilizing auditable facts like figures of percentages, bottom line, right? Savings in terms of what you've saved the company, anything like that that might not already be on your resume. Or soft skills wise, you can say, I was able to collaborate with several different members of the executive management team. And you can sometimes, depending on your audience, you can even name them by name. Darcy and I were working very closely on a very specific project that I was very honored to be a part of. Humility, right? Also, one of the other things that I really would love to impart is convey that you understand ambiguity. And the reason why I say that is because in today's workforce, especially today's where we're trying to recover from the pandemic and everything, I don't care where you're at, everybody is bandwidth is crushed. You're full go, you're going to get into a position where they're just going to ask you to conquer the world. They're going to give you everything that they have for you to take on. A lot of times managers will partially give you information, right? Or they will only be able to provide you with a part of a task, right? So managing ambiguity is per Korn Ferry, right? I want you all to also get familiar with Korn Ferry as a place where you can find out how to best improve your soft skill sets and how to convey your hard skill sets. According to Korn Ferry, it is one of the most hardest to master traits of a high performer is ambiguity. How do you manage ambiguity? Tell me what your thoughts are on ambiguity. And one thing I will say, and I know I'm being long-winded, but I also want to get this out, is that extend the olive branch to your partners. By extending the olive branch, give something first. Give the trust first. Let them know that you're willing to partner with them in the best serviceable manner possible. I commit to you. I dedicate to you. And be realistic, right? Set your real expectations, but extend the olive branch. And I promise you, it'll get you where you want to go.
Thank you. Wow, that was deep. Thank you, Max. But I totally agree, being humble, it will take you far in life. Because if you know everything, there's no way you're going to learn anything else new. Absolutely. So let's
right?
move to the next.
No, I was just going to say, if you know everything, nobody needs to tell you anything, right?
Exactly. Let's move to the next questions. Question number 3. Darren, do you want to take it first?
Yeah, sure. So what advice do you have for anyone, especially new grads who are job seekers seeking in this virtual environment? I think that it's an interesting time for job seekers, because it's absolutely a job seekers market. There are just positions everywhere. Everybody has openings and we just can't find people to fill them. It is absolutely a job seekers market. And I think and it's interesting in a time where people should actually be interviewing companies far more than companies interviewing people. And let me kind of explain that, because one of the things that I didn't want to explain on the panel is, to understand that you need to look for a job, but understand finding a good job is the biggest thing, and good being an acronym in this situation. So finding a job that expresses gratitude for having you there, because this is a situation where I think work in general puts people in a mindset that you're thankful for your job. You're able to feed yourself and your family and put a roof over your head and drive your car because of your job. But by the same token, from the top down, there are missions that are being accomplished by the people at the absolute bottom place of any type of company. So the expression of gratitude should always be big in finding a company that is not going to just throw you a pizza party because you did well, but it's talking about quarterly bonuses, that talks about providing employee incentives, that has a health plan that's not going to gouge your paycheck, that provides you with a flexible PTO plan, that provides you with any type of paternity or maternity leave, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on, but find the things that make you comfortable and look for the job that provides gratitude in that way. You also need to find a company that has an objective that you believe in. Don't be in a situation where people are miserable. I know a lot of people that came from a Wall Street environment and were out of there in a year and a half because they were miserable with some of the things that they had to do and the way they had to speak to people. So find a job that has an objective, that has something, a company that is providing something to the world that you agree with and you can get behind, that you can feel fulfilled every single day, waking up, having to go to that place and providing for that mission. Find a job that absolutely provide you opportunities for growth. This is a situation where, you don't need to hop around in companies like I did when I got out of college. There was really nothing that was hiring and I was just trying to figure out what I was going to do. But this is a situation where you can get in, especially as a new grad, you can get into a company just outside of an internship that will provide you an opportunity to grow into another level, that will provide things like education and tuition reimbursement, that will provide you the opportunity to get the certifications that will let you move to another place in the company, that will provide you more money, will provide you a greater opportunity to provide for yourself and your family, provide you an opportunity to move into your career field. That's the dream field for you. Might provide you an opportunity to move to another state that you've been looking to. So these are all things that you should be looking for. And the last thing is to look for a company that's diligent in your success. A company that's absolutely going to give you the opportunity to be successful there, and not just the opportunity to be there from 9 to 5. So one of the big things, especially in this day with employment in general, is most employment is at will employment. And that means that the company or yourself as the employee can terminate your engagement at any point in time, and there's not a need for a notice. 2 weeks notice is kind of is customary for the employee, but the company can let you go at any point in time. So with that being in mind, you need to find a place that has things in line to be able to give you the opportunity to step it up if you're falling a little bit behind, that will provide you the opportunity to actually see what's going wrong and provide you the opportunity to fix it and give you the tools to be successful there, as opposed to just throwing you to the wolves and letting you try to figure it out. So this is what it is to find a good job, and particularly in this remote environment, it's very big not being able to see people face to face, be able to run that as you have these interviews and you're looking for your career field.
And if I can just add to that, Darren, excellent points. Definitely be cognizant of the goals and the missions and the values of the company that you're applying to. And if I could also just suggest, find those out way before going to the interview. And you could even let the interviewers know that you've seen on their website that they are big supporters of, we'll say, just like Habitat for Humanity, and you can mention that's something close to your heart. And in fact, I've known some hiring managers actually get shocked by some candidates that come in with that understanding, or They are shocked by the candidate actually looking on the website and saying, hey, I just recently saw in the news you guys are planning a big launch for a big next level business line that you guys have. How's that going? Right? You can even, just to piggyback on that, you can go into any interview with pertinent, targeted, make sense questions by going to their website and looking up what they've got currently going on. And it's fair game, right? You don't have to think, man, what do I want to ask about? You don't have to ask about benefits or pay right away. You can always go to their website and see what's going on with them. Just ask the question. Hey, I saw that you were doing this. Do you have any knowledge or insight on that? Perfectly fair game, right? One of the things that I also want to just relay is that, yes, most companies, they really should be grateful that you're there, right? And one of the pet peeves of mine that I've had in my past been asked is, why should we hire you? That type of a question is very, for me as a professional, I feel like that's a very off-putting question. To be frank, it's because you have a need, right? And you've suggested to me that you feel that I'm going to fill that need because we're here talking about it. I don't want you to get that that expressive in the interview, but I want you to have that mindset, right? And growth is absolutely, going to happen, whether it's at the company you're at or while you're trying to find another job, because it's extremely uncomfortable. Just remember, you've never been there before. That's why growth is uncomfortable. But take it on. And when you ask for growth, when you ask for development, just remember that is not always going to be, it doesn't have to be an unpleasant experience, but it's not always going to be the best experience in terms of how things are going to go, because you've never been there before, right? It's like taking a class where you thought the class was going to go one way and you realized that it was really tough, and you were like, man, I wasn't really expecting my class to be like this. But now that you've passed that class, you're better having gone through that experience. And it's the same on the job market, or in the job field rather. So just wanted to add that. Thank you, Darren. It was great.
Absolutely. Thank you, Max. I agree. You're going to fail. It's just going to happen, but you got to get back on the horse, continue forth. Everybody across stories, I'm sure everybody, especially as we talk about this internet, environment that we're in right now, everybody has seen the memes that show where all these billionaires and millionaires came from. Everybody started in the garage or on the streets. I mean, everyone has a story, but they continue forth. And if they had just decided to quit, we wouldn't have these great things like Amazon to deliver us packages in 2 days. So, it's definitely going to happen, but you got to continue.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you, Max. What do you guys think about having a clarity? What type of job do you want? Making a list of the items that would you like to see within the job? Is that helpful?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yes, please. Can you repeat that for us?
So can you guys hear me well now?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Having a list of all the items that you want to see within the job, is that helpful for the students to have a clarity?
I think that it is helpful as long as you, as long as at least in what I would say is that as long as you can pivot, right?
Mhm.
Have your list, know that that's the list that you're targeting. But because I've seen some persons, even at the highest levels, have a list of expectations, and when things aren't going well, what they'll do is they will, say, well, I just don't think anybody understands what I'm bringing to the table. Make sure that your list is something that you can, be pliable with. Just, really seek out what you can compromise and what you're absolutely not willing to compromise. And if you find that you're not getting met with where you're not willing to compromise, you got to find out why. Right? You have to find out, is it my ability to communicate how I need to have these things?
Mhm.
Or is it, that this position maybe isn't exactly what these several things can deliver for me, right? So just a case in point, I had a military veteran who tried so hard to really get into a previous company of mine. He had interviewed 7 times. His name was Harold, and Harold actually was very qualified on paper, but he really had a hard time in interviews, not being very structured. He was very rigid. He did not seem, very agreeable at times. And that was the feedback that I got from the hiring managers, right? Whether or not he was a good PM, they kind of didn't, that kind of didn't matter, because in project management, collaboration and understanding and working together is paramount, you know? So when they would interview him, you know, the constant feedback is like, yeah, he's good on paper, but I just don't know that the team would be comfortable, you know, in and around that kind of space. So the list is good. Try to find where you can and cannot compromise, and then work it from there.
Thank you. Darren?
I 100% agree. I think, you know, from a list standpoint, just like Max said, it's definitely, you know, it's best to be pliable. It's best to be flexible in terms of kind of what is available to you and what you're looking for. You know, for another example, I was really anxious to move into management in the position that I took before the one that I'm in now, and was looking, but I couldn't find a position that allowed for me to be more of a hands-on manager, that I could still kind of get down and recruit myself, do some high-level sourcing myself. It was all just kind of paperwork and more, you know, pushing the team in terms of guidelines and you know, setting parameters for the days, et cetera, et cetera. So what I happened to do was kind of, you know, adjust my list a little bit in terms of what I was looking for. I was able to take a position with a company that had a decent recruiting team who was looking for a lead, and it literally told me that the management position had been open for like 6 months and they couldn't find anybody. So obviously I saw the opportunity for me to come in as a lead, do exactly what I needed to do, make the suggestions that I had in other management positions that I had, and I was quickly moved into the management position that I wanted anyway. So it's a situation where you know what you want, but understand, you know, as we talk about opportunities and seizing the opportunity that's in front of you, I saw an opportunity for me to be able to come in, do exactly what I was going to do anyway, to move into the position that I wanted, to be able to do more of the high level stuff that I needed, while still being able to keep the lead position where I was down in the dirt, still recruiting and doing high level sourcing the way I wanted to. So be flexible, understand when an opportunity presents itself. If there is an opportunity for you to come in, knock it out of the park and move into that position that you ultimately want to move into, that department that you ultimately want, take it and seize the day.
Wow, great feedback. Thank you, Darren.
Absolutely.
So with that, we're going to move to the last question. Max or Darren, do you guys who wants to take first?
I took the last one. If I can go, it's up to you.
Go ahead, Darren.
Okay. So, yeah, in terms of the biggest difference that I've seen between government, you know, government recruiting and private sector roles, no, it's interesting. I think that private sector roles tend to be a little bit more flexible in terms of what your background is and what those qualifications tend to be. You know, the private sector are, you know, companies that are a little bit more startup environment. There are companies that don't necessarily have those stringent, you know, just rules in general that government regulations tend to put on any type of roles. So, you know, they tend to be a little bit more flexible, and it's more soft skills. It's more, can you mesh with our team? Are you going to be here long term? You know, what do you bring to our environment? So those, if you're more of a laid back individual, you don't want to come in corporate suit every single day. You want an environment that will allow for you to be a little bit more team oriented. You guys will go out and do stuff post pandemic. Then probably private sector is a little bit, you know, more your vibe. Government sectors tends to be very stringent in terms of what they're looking for. Do you have a bachelor's degree? Do you have a master's degree? Do you have 5 to 7 years of experience? If the position calls for 5 to 7 years, you can have 4 years and 10 months experience. They won't take you. Wait another 2 months, apply for it again if it's still open. That's what they'll tell you. So, you know, if you're looking for an environment that's going to be a little bit more corporate feel, but it's also going to provide you with probably a higher level of benefits, more job security, is going to be able to pay you a higher salary. I mean, that's just very real. The government, for some reason, just throws around money for no reason. So if you want, you know, a position that's going to be, you know, something that's going to lock you to that 9 to 5 hours, and you're probably going to work overtime. You're going to be more in a corporate environment, more micromanaged, but you're going to make more money and be more safe and secure in your job, then the government is probably going to be a better sector for you to dive into.
Yeah, and then also one of the things that I know about government contracts is that very heavily audited, very, very regulated, as you were saying, Darren. So that is going to mean that, you know, the onus of your seat is often locked into just your seat, right? Like everyone that I've ever placed within the OFCC compliance, you know, the reason why they had that lock-in is because of the auditing. The government contracting is highly regulated. So the persons who are going into that tend to have, just like Darren said, more of a very data analysis, very structured, very, can get the job done, subject matter experts. It's, one of the things that I've experienced is when those particular positions come open, like Darren said, it's really hard to not, it's harder to get more applicants of a diversity of experience, because when they're hired, they have to go through this training, and then they have to affirm that they've been through that training, and even that's audited, right? So if you have already gone through that training, then they may just re kind of invest in that, but you kind of understand it, and the process. So it's likely that you're going to get more of a leg up if you've already been involved in government contracting. But the difference that I've seen is that the candidate pool is very, very targeted. It's very targeted. Whereas in the private sector, the candidate pool is almost the 180. Like, they want a lot more diversity now. They're looking for inclusion and diversity and equity. Pay is really off. Like, it's very not off, but it's really Wild West kind of type thing because of the market, especially right now. Those are the main differences that I've seen in terms, like, and then for some government contracts at another company, they want the person to have gone to a specific educational institution, is another thing that I've seen, but just a lot more like check the boxes for government contracting.
Thank you, Max. And before we move to question answer, I have one question for you. Would you recommend students to negotiate their salary when they leave the school and that's going to be their first job? What is your recommendation on that?
I can take that. As I'm going through right now at recruiting, I'm one of the things that we're going through is called an interview day. Interview day is meant to be very succinct, very fast. It's 2 managers, 1 candidate, 1 interview. Do they fit? Yes or no? If they fit, make an offer. Ultimately, almost every single person that I make an offer to, they counter offer, right? As anybody at any stage, if you counter offer with information that is a good return on investment. Very true. Okay, because this is why I'm saying that. It all ties together. Like I was saying in the interview, your resume's done its job. You've done your job by explaining how you're going to be a good return on investment and how you plan on making that manager look good to their manager. If you counter the offer, cite reasons why that are auditable, like, percentages, time invested, certifications that you maybe not have mentioned in the interview prior, right? One of the things that really works really well is that, if you have more than 1 offer, you don't have to disclose company or anything like that, but just let them know, just politely, respectfully, I have to just inform you that I'm also entertaining another offer and they're comparable or they're not comparable, right? So counter with value, not because you just need more money, right? And I know that's the reason why, but we want to give a reason why, to open the wallet a little bit harder, right? A little bit wider. Let's go with the money because I know that I'm worth it. Here's why. Darren.
I 100% agree. You got to counter with something if you're going to counter at all. And it can be something as simple as, the requirement, as I read it, said that you are looking for 1 year of experience and I actually have 2. I mean, it could be something as simple as that, but don't just, oh, we're going to offer you, let's say 40,000. You say, oh, no, I'm looking for 50. Please don't. I think that's just like he said. I know everybody wants more money, and yes, but it's not going to be well, if I say 50, they might say 40. No, we're not going to play that game. We're probably not. They're going to tell you, okay, well, if you're looking for 50, let me get back to you and let's see if we can do that. They're going to hang up the phone and immediately disqualify you in the system. So please don't be cheeky. If you feel like you are a bit overqualified for the position, or there is something else that you can provide. As Max said earlier, if you've been on the website and you're seeing that they have another need and possibly another department, and you say, I might be able to contribute to this, I've done white papers before in my previous role. When I was in college, I contributed proposals. You know, if there are other things that you can contribute to the company, these are things that you need to highlight if you're going to ask for more money. Otherwise, understand what the market is paying. There are, again, it's a job seekers market, and there are a lot of companies that are paying over market value right now. So if you're going to be making over market value, take the opportunity to get into a company at the bottom floor, get your foot in the door, and find a way to be able to provide something else that's going to get you more money in the future with that same company.
And if I can add something, you know, women on the call, please do your due diligence. Never sell yourself short, please, in every single aspect. Women are majorly my mentors, right? So I can tell you that what I as a recruiter at this level, I see the discrepancy. I see the pay discrepancy. I see it, and I can't stand it. And I'm trying to tell you the keys in order to get to solve this problem, right? That I can see is that, number one, companies need to understand it should be equal pay for equal work, regardless of gender. And then secondly, don't sell yourself short. One thing that I read a study on LinkedIn was that the way men apply to a position is if they can conquer 80%, they're going to go for the 100%. They're going to say, okay, I'm going to apply to this. I know I can do most of that. I can probably do some of that, you know, or whatever. I'll figure it out. Now, just by this, you know, LinkedIn's saying, so women tend to go for the 100% match.
Yep.
Every single box they say, yep, I can do, right? Conquer it. You have the strength. There is no difference. I'm a big proponent of mixed martial arts and martial arts in general. There is no discrepancy there for me, right? I see women as even more valuable than men at times. But I'm just trying to tell you, in this market, in this area, in your career, don't sell yourself short. You are worth everything you want. I promise you. Just wanted to put that in there.
Great point.
Max, I'm going to vote for you.
Thanks.
That was a great conclusion. So let's move to question answer. Jessica, if you can help me to promote attendees to the panelists.
Yes.
You want to take from the top and I take it from the bottom?
Yeah, I can do top.
Awesome. And this way we're going to be able to communicate. And we kindly ask you to please turn your camera on. Fantastic. So Jessica, if you can help me with the QA question and the chat, if you can follow that. And then if any participant wants to ask a question, please raise your hand.
Okay. And we do already have one question in the chat.
Oh, we do? Okay.
From Frederick. He asks, is it okay to ask your employer if they have any hesitations about your qualification?
Absolutely, it is. It's highly encouraged, as you know, the last step in an interview of, you know, as you're kind of concluding and say, you know, I just want to ask, are there any hesitations? You know, is there any reticence about my experience or anything that I might be able to provide to the team? Most employers will say, oh, well, yeah, I actually, this was da 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 da. They'll tell you about a piece in your resume that you might be missing, or the fact that you're a little bit underexperienced, and you might be able to, provide some type of reinforcement for whatever that hesitance may be. So yeah, it's definitely okay to ask, and it's highly encouraged.
And I can add to that. Yes, it is. Feedback is a gift, right? And I know that a lot of, especially me, right? I used to have a really tough time taking feedback earlier in my career. And I really have to say that utilizing feedback when given to you is really building on yourself. It's reinvesting in yourself, right? So, and to Darren's point, your management will appreciate that you're looking for where you can improve, and citing instances and opportunities where you have an ability to rectify or improve something that maybe you have that area to improve in. So yes, encourage the fact in your one-on-ones. A lot of times people will say, a manager will do this. They will say, what do you need from me to make you successful? What else can I do? When you folks out there that are going into the workforce become management, I would love it if you remember this fact. Tell someone what you can do for them in a one-on-one. And I'm bringing this up, I know it's kind of off topic, but it does relate. Good managers are leaders. And those that love to follow them they do so because they see value and they become loyal. So when you have an opportunity to lead others, suggest the areas in which they can improve and then follow through, right? Because that's what this gentleman is really asking. Hey, if I ask them, is it good? Should I, what else can I be doing? Because that question is only coming to that manager because there hasn't been an instance where they felt led. They haven't felt the opportunity to say, the manager to tell them, hey, awesome job, Max, on this. Let me just kind of show you another piece, which not only would you get a gold star, you'd get 2 gold stars, right? You want to have 2 gold stars, do it this way next time. And they'll be appreciative of that. So great question.
Thank you, Max. Please raise your hand if you have a question. Angel.
Hi, I put my question in the chat, but my question was, if you're in the interview process with a company, would it be appropriate to ask about other roles?
I think that it depends on the way that you ask. If it's a situation where, let's say, you apply to 2 positions in a company, which probably shouldn't do if we're going to be really honest off the bat right now. Find the one that's a little bit closer aligned, as we were talking about, to what you exactly want to do. But if for some reason, you see a position and then you see another one that looks like it's a little bit more in line, and then you're interviewed for the first one, I think that you can bring up the fact that I had also applied to this role. I'm super interested in the company in general. Make sure that the interest always remains in the company and not necessarily in the position. The company is what drew me, but I also saw that you had this position open. I actually didn't see that when I applied to the other one. I want to know, is that position open for a particular reason? You can ask some additional questions about it just to show interest, but don't necessarily come off as, hey, I know I'm interviewing for this, but I like this role more. Could we talk about that now? It's probably a different hiring manager. They're going to see it as, you don't really care about this conversation, and they're probably not going to pass on your information. So you can ask, but make sure that the interest maintains in the company and not necessarily just the difference in the positions.
Yes, great insight, Darren. Definitely, for sure. I have that scenario play out several times a week, where there are multiple applications for candidates that are interviewing. And I can tell you this, mentioning it in an interview, again, has to be tactful. Very good way. It depends on how you say it, right? You can mention it out of respect and say to the hiring manager, I have every intention of fulfilling the needs of this position. I also would just like to let you know, respectfully, that There's another position that I'm also interested in because I feel I can get a good return on investment in that as well. But please make sure that you do articulate that, because Darren made a good point. Think of it like this. The manager has 13 people to see, and 2 of them say, I might also be interested in this role. He's got another 11 people. He or she has another 11 people that have not expressed that they're interviewing anywhere else and have not said that I might be interested in this other role. You may be putting yourself at a disadvantage, right? So just letting you know that if you mention it tactfully, as Darren said, and then you might have to reinforce exactly how you plan on being the best fit for that role, because they felt that, you know, you could possibly be, but do you possibly feel that you could fulfill that role?
Agreed.
Just letting you know.
Could I provide some context? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, so essentially the position is for a data analyst role, and it looks like the bulk of their analysis is on Excel, and I don't want to lose my programming engineering skills. So I'm looking for a role that I can actually use the skills that I used in college instead of just Excel alone. So that's why.
So when you say the skills from college, you mean like maybe you work a little bit more on SQL?
Yeah, SQL, structuring data, unstructured data, things like that.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's something great to bring up. You know, I think that there are a lot of data analyst positions that are working within Excel, and it's pointless, to be honest. You know, I personally think that SQL is a better tool for it. So that might be a situation where you could say, you know, it looks like you are working in Excel right now, even though I have been working in SQL and I may not have that Excel experience. I personally think that these are some of the advantages of SQL. Get into kind of a conversation with that hiring manager, because that again shows that you have the mindset to be able to come in and maybe provide something different, or you could come in and they could, you know, kind of convince you that Excel is what we're using right now. But as you get in, you start to talk to the people that are actually making the decisions, and that can start to run up the chain very quickly. So I think that's a great point. If you have that type of experience, be sure to try to bring that up in a manner that creates a conversation and not says, hey, I don't use Excel, I use SQL, and it's what I want to keep doing. You know, it sounds a little pompous. You got it.
For sure. Absolutely great. And that's one of the gems that I was talking about in the interview, right? You are going for a specific position because you know that you can, you know, provide a good return on investment. In the interview, you have an opportunity to drive the bus, right? Everybody get on the bus. We're all going to go to the same spot, right? Well, let me tell you how I can provide a shortcut for you, right? Here, you know, I know that you guys are using, you know, this specific skill set. I have this as well. You know, do you see that there's a good possibility that I could bring to your team and your efforts some easement by utilizing this for you? Do you think that that would be an opportunity that we can discuss when I get the job? Right. So definitely bring that up. That's great. Way better than to say, hey, I also was applying so over here in case, you know, I want the 2 that's, you know, but yes, so good. Yes. Keep those gems in mind, folks, you know, and when you mention them, make sure that you mention them in the context on how you plan on using that from your toolbox to build their house.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good question.
That's a great feedback. And as Darren and Max mentioned, Angel, Excel, data analytics, for me, that's high school. SQL, that's college level. And if you can bring this as an asset and let them know that you can improve their system, that's gonna be your jewel and your benefit. Okay, next question. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Alice? You have to unmute yourself. There you go.
So I wanted to ask about like company sizes, like other than monetary compensation, what are like the major differences for working for like a small and medium company or like a large company or something like that?
Do you want to start this one, Max?
Sure. So pros and cons about going to a smaller company versus a larger company. Is that the question?
Yes.
Okay. So going to a smaller company, you have an opportunity to kind of set the groundwork for the future. You have the opportunity to go in and set the tone, the culture, the dynamic, and just build on an opportunity that there's kind of a blank slate, right? That's a pro, definitely, because you find that the work you do with the team you start with gets remembered very heavily, right? Especially in a smaller setting, you guys are really, putting in the hours, and that's a con, right? That typically with a smaller organization, that growth makes persons wear multiple hats or really gets them having to work longer hours, and sometimes depending on the company, it could be a thankless job, because you're in a smaller company and everyone's pushing the burning the midnight oil and everything, but it's an opportunity for you to be able to get into a company and really kind of get to know thyself and your team. Now, the cons again are lots of hard work, lots of long hours. Now, in a larger company, the pro getting into a larger company is probably going to be a little bit more money, a little bit more structure, a little bit more subject matter experts that are going to be around you and be able to teach you kind of the ropes and be able to get to know how that company is and the dynamic and where the lunchroom is and where not to park. And that's just me being funny, but I'm just saying, right? So but you'll have a really large structure, and typically lots are already set in place, like policies, procedures. You're going to get all of that, and again, probably paid training and stuff like that. The cons about getting into a larger organization is that depending on how large and depending upon how much turnover is adamant. Turnover is adamant. Like, you're going to have teams that create each other or are good. Some people go to large organizations to get the experience and then they go to somewhere else, right? The turnover happens, and also on the other side of that coin, sometimes upward mobility might not be as available there because there's been that person who's been in that role for 14 years and they're not going anywhere, So you're in a large organization, they still have an ability to, keep you in there if you're doing a great job, but you might have hit a plateau or a ceiling, if you will. But that's kind of where I can just mention the pros and cons of both.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think the only other thing that I could add is just kind of a day-to-day. I think from a small organization, like you said, there's going to be a lot of, changing parts. There's going to be a lot going on, and the day-to-day is going to be very, not only challenging, but very rewarding. It's going to be a lot of different stuff that you do. It's going to be a very exciting environment to be in. And I think if that's the energy that you're looking for, you want to wake up every day and not really know what the challenges are going to be and come in and be able to conquer something new every day, then that small company startup environment is going to be something that's really awesome for you. But on a day-to-day, just like you said, you're going to have a lot of structure in a large organization. You're going to come in and it's going to be basically the same thing, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, month after month, year after year. And that upward mobility is not going to happen until, as Max said, somebody leaves a position, or it's really going to be from the very top. If there's an opening, then they're going to recruit the next person, then the next person, then the next person, the next person. And you might have an opportunity to bump up one step every 5 to 7 years. But if that's really what you're looking for, that structure is something that gives you that balance. If that's what you're looking for, then a large organization, like you said, is going to pay you a little bit more, going to give you a little bit more of that structure. But you never really know with that turnover because it's such a large team, and they know because the company has been drudging along for decades, filling these positions again and again and again. As they go over, they know they'll find somebody else. So you're not going to be really seen as an individual. You're going to be more of a cog in the system, a small piece in a big puzzle. But again, it's going to be a lot of structure, and you're probably going to make a little bit more money. So there are a lot of pros and cons, and it really depends on what you feel like is going to provide you the best space and the best environment.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Darren. Next question. Pritam, I know you're going through different interviews. Do you don't have any questions? Everyone is good to go. Everyone's gonna find a job tomorrow.
If no one has a question, I can ask one. So recently, a lot of things that I've been seeing that's pretty common, especially in tech, is like people will stay in their roles for 1 or 2 years, and then they switch companies, switch jobs like every couple of years. Do you think that's something that's beneficial, or is that something that's frowned upon against recruiters? How do you feel about that?
I can start this one if you
Okay.
like. I think that that's a really good question. You know, it's all a game in that situation, and I think it's kind of what the market entails for you. I know myself, I didn't plan to leave the companies that I was in after a year and a half, 2 years in certain situations, but it's what was, you know, kind of in my realm. It's what I was trying to do with my career. There were other things that I was trying to do in the current company that I was at, maybe didn't provide that, and I was able to move into another situation. But all of these were contracts for me. It was never a full-time position that I took, and I planned on being there for 5 to 10 years. You know, I knew that this engagement was going to end somewhere between 6 months to a year because it was a 6-month contract. So if you've been a contractor, put it on your resume, make sure that people know. And if you're looking for a full-time position, make sure that that's known as well. But, you know, necessarily moving between companies isn't really a bad thing if that's literally what you're trying to do. So, you know, make it known that if now let's put this on the other end as well, though. Now, if you're taking these full-time positions and you plan to be there long-term, and then suddenly you don't like a coworker, or, you know, the drive is suddenly terrible, or, oh, you know, they didn't tell me that I have to pay for this, or I don't like any lunch spots around, there's some little trivial reason you decide to leave the company, or, you know, you feel like you get into a certain role and, you know, you meet somebody and you have friends that are making more money than you, so you want more money, and now you're leaving companies like this. These are the things that are really going to get you into a bad space, because there are references, and, you know, there are employment checks that us as recruiters that we do. And it's not necessarily a reference where we're going to call somebody that you know at the company and ask, hey, do you like this person? Would you hire him again? We're going to call HR and we're going to ask very specific things about what you did there. What was this person like? What was their attendance like? What was this like? And we're going to know that, you know, it started out great, then they started to fall off. It seemed like they were discontent, and then suddenly they left the company. And if you have that type of track record, people are going to stop hiring you, and you're not going to be able to keep doing this thing that you like. So try to get, you know, a little bit more specific. If you're going to be a contractor, then go into an understanding that you're going to learn something at this company and you're going to move on to the next one. But if you're looking for somewhere, then you need to dig your feet in and make sure that you can be there long term, regardless of what little trivial problems that may come up.
Thank you, Darren. Max, do you want to
No,
add anything to
I
that?
absolutely concur. Now, I will say, per the question you were asking, is that a good or bad thing? Is that right, Jessica?
Yes.
Okay. So in the context of that, hiring managers will question the recruiter. Did you ask them about, you know, their tenure at most of these places? So when you're with the recruiter, right? Now, most people here are going to be, you know, first job, second job, what have you. And to Darren's point, really get to know the role, get to know the people, get to know the dynamic in the team. You know, ask the manager, you know, what's your management style? Because typically people don't leave companies, they leave managers, right? They get discontent with why the manager did this, or, you know, I thought this was the policy, or I don't like the way that they're constantly, you know, over my shoulder, whatever. Get to know the manager style before accepting the position. Really try to understand yourself and your needs, and try to see if that's a baked in kind of dynamic in the role that you're applying to. But going from one job to the next in a 5-year span, if you've got 6 jobs in a 5-year span, something is not going to gel right. So it could be, is this the right role for you, or is it the right sub role for you, a role within a role, if you will, right? You're trying to kind of figure those things out because you're new to the market. You know, you're anticipating it should be like this, and when it's not, you don't know if you should leave, or you should maybe try to find another position in the company, which could make sense. Instead of leaving first, try to find something else in the company that would allow you to move if it's possible. But when you leave on good terms, right? Leave on good terms. Ask the HR representative as well as your manager, you know, now that I'm, you know, giving my 2 weeks, I'm sorry it didn't work out. Can I count on you for a reference? Right? That way, even if they say, well, you know, HR does that or whatever, at least you've expressed to them that, hey, sorry it didn't work out. You know, I plan on getting another job. And of course, this is my work history we're talking about. So if you care, they probably will too, right? So for those persons that I've experienced and I've done this, you know, hey, so long, didn't like it here, have a good one. Yeah, you know, sometimes I wish I could take that back, but that was when I was a real young kid. But Darren had it right when he said, you know, make sure that you really get that context and be able to kind of care. My message is definitely care about how you leave a company, because you're going to need those references.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I see there's a question in the chat.
Okay.
Read it.
Mhm.
So, Young Joe asked, how do certifications help? There are all different certifications in the IT field. Should you obtain the certification to help show your skill sets? And does the certification better to match the job description? So it's like it's several questions in one. So I guess the biggest one is, how do certifications help you land a job?
Go ahead, Darren.
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, especially nowadays, I think certifications are in a lot of ways seen as more important than an actual computer science degree. You know, it's understanding that it's an ever-flowing kind of job market. You know, people get into IT every single day, and it's not necessarily a path that people saw for themselves when they were in college. So if you are able to obtain a certification, that's awesome, and it's definitely encouraged. But I would say, you know, because you can get lost in the sauce with some of these certs, you can end up with kind of, you know, 7 or 8 different certifications, and you're getting literally hit up for all of these different types of jobs, because there are a lot of email campaigns and, you know, recruiting software that will literally pick up resumes based off of a certification, you know, whether that be anything in cybersecurity, A+, network plus, you know, Linux plus, I mean, all of these different security certifications, CEH, CISP, if you just get a bunch of certs, then there's not really anything targeted, and you're not really going to know either, because you're going to get dozens and dozens of emails every single day from all these different jobs. So try to figure out exactly what it is that you want to do. Again, figure that out early on so you can figure out a certification path for yourself. What's the very base certification? What's one that's a little bit more advanced? What's the senior level certification? What are branches off of these that specifically I might want to do? Do I want to move into cybersecurity? Great. Do I want to do penetration testing? Do I want to do security engineering? Do I want to work with Splunk? Do I want to work with ArcSight? Figure out exactly what it is that you want to do and what tool it is that you want to be specified in, and move into those certifications so that you can get contacted by the jobs that literally line up with those certifications.
And this one, I really feel like I have kind of some insight too, because when I was at Skillstorm, part of the job that I had was to sell certifications for Skillstorm, those being AWS, Pega, Salesforce, ServiceNow. And one of the things that we had to make sure that we told those persons who were applying to them is the level, just like Darren said, of the expectation that you should have with this certification after getting it, right? Certification isn't a magic wand that you wave at a job and say, I conquer the job, right? Certification is the specification through somebody else's acknowledgement that you have done specific projects inside of this tool, right? They do carry weight, and like Darren said, sometimes depending on the company, more weight than a computer science degree. But here's what I would offer. We'll use Salesforce as an example, because Salesforce has a plethora of certifications, but there's also a tool that Salesforce came out with that it escapes me right now, but it's not the certification, it's a test on what your certification is supposed to say that you can do, and you get a score, right? So what I'm trying to impart is that the certification, even Salesforce says, we recognize that companies are kind of not saying that the certification that we have is worth anything, because they'll hire someone with one of our certs and they'll put them on the job and they'll be lost. So they in fact developed an entire tool, can't remember what it's called right now, but anyways, where they give you these badges that say you've committed several different hours and been tested on the certifications qualifiers, right? So Darren made a great point. You can get a ton of certifications, but you are going to have some pudding with those certifications for those potential employers.
Was it Trailhead?
Trailhead.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was like, I've heard of
Yeah.
those. Right.
Trailhead. Like if you try to get your Salesforce certifications and you're applying to positions, do not be surprised if the interviewer says to you, "What's your Trailhead score?"
Yeah.
And you're like, 4? I did. All right. So just putting it out there, always have some substance with your certifications that says you've proven on multiple occasions that you can use that cert quite well.
Great points.
We're gonna open for the last question. Jessica, are there any questions in the chat on the QA?
Yeah, there is another one in the chat.
Okay.
So Preetham asks, is it true that when we move from one company to another, our salary increases too? If so, how does that work with negotiations? Is that related to number of years of experience?
You know, it's not guaranteed, you know, just to jump right into it, it's not guaranteed that when you move companies, you're going to increase your salary. You know, that's something that's completely dependent on the company in terms of what they're willing to offer for that particular position. There are times where, you know, I've moved from a management position to a low level position and I made more money than I was when I was a manager. You know, it's not necessarily dependent on moving companies. It's more so about, you know, what exactly you're offering for this particular position. So as you move companies, if you're making horizontal moves, you know, if I was moving from a technical recruiter from one company to another, then another, then another, then another, it might eventually depend on years of experience after the first 3 or 4 companies, but within that first 3 or 4, I'm probably going to be offered pretty much the same thing within a $5,000 to $10,000, you know, balance in between that. So it's not necessarily just moving companies that's going to provide you a higher salary. It's more so if you learn a specific skill from this company and you can move to the next one and provide that skill in a higher fashion, when they literally need that skill, then you might be able to negotiate an extra $5,000 to $10,000. But again, as we've talked about in the beginning, it's more so based on what you're providing in that particular position, as opposed to just moving the company, having another year of experience under your belt.
Yes, and also, as Darren pointed out, it really does depend on the opportunity that you've applied to, because when recruiters have candidates that are coming from different companies, I'll give you an example in my current position. I have candidates that come from PricewaterhouseCoopers, Ernst & Young, Goldman Sachs, all throughout my job postings, right? And they are all, without a doubt, I'm sure, seeking more money, right? It really is going to depend on what that person brings to the table and what they're going to be as far as counted on for deliverables, right? Because sometimes, as Darren said, even if it's a lateral move on paper, you may be expected to take on much more work and much more responsibility. It's just that's the way they structured that role at that company, right? So, and they may offer you less because typically what they've done is they've said these people, you know, they come in, we trust them with this and this and that, and then when they, you know, get to their annual review, we kind of open the purse strings, you know, a little bit wider. So just, you know, on the merit of moving companies, that probably is not you know, a really well understood thing, you know, I would say. So when you are going to move companies, it's just vitally important, as the meta narrative of this entire G has been, is that you have to really be able to know yourself, know your worth, be able to communicate that worth, and you know, be targeted to what you want to get and do.
Follow-up question, what do you mean by know your worth?
So your worth is based on a couple of different things, externally and internally. Externally, your worth is based upon your experiences, where you've been, and how well you've done what you've done, right? That's your market worth, right? I could go on and expand that a lot, but I won't. Internally, your worth is the understanding of what you're willing to sacrifice in order for you to get to where you need to be. And why I say that is this, because inherent worth or your just worth as a person, not as a professional, but as a person, is no better than anyone else. But your internal work ethic, as Darren pointed out, your ability to sacrifice, your ability to take on feedback, your ability to take on all of these things, you internalize each time you do it, right? So when you do that, you're building and you're acceptant of it, and you don't, and it's not something that's egregious or abrasive or something that you're not willing to conform to, right? You are now building your internal worth. And so when you glean that and you think about, man, am I better than anybody? No, but do I know that I put in the time? Do I know that I extensionally look for more of education or something that can enhance my ability? I do that. Yes, I do. I can cite out many times where I was trying to get my Six Sigma certification, and I was up at 3 a.m. trying to compile the math that it takes to make a scatter chart and some of the distinctions between, you know, the variables, the one-offs. Nobody that I know was up at 3 a.m. doing that. That's a recruiter, right? I don't know them. If there were, I don't have any knowledge of that. So my understanding of what I know that I can really sacrifice and know that I'm really going to go for and really put my, like Darren said, dig my heels in and say, doggone, I know that I'm going to sacrifice for this role. Now your worth to yourself is much higher. It's higher than having said, well, I just can't, man. I can't move today. All right, but I'm going to move today. I'm going to get up and I'm going to do something today, right now, right when I get off this forum that we're having. That's your internal worth. So know it. Know that you've done it. Know that you can do it. Know that you're going to do it. That's your internal worth. Make sure you know what that is.
Agreed.
Thank you. I see one more panelist wants to ask a question. Lee, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So this is Lee, and I just have a question about LinkedIn. Do you think it's a good idea for us to be look for recruiter on the LinkedIn and connect with the recruiter, and then after that, maybe we try to find a way to ask like for help for the job? Like, yeah. Do you think that's a good idea, or is it kind of like rule if we just like come up and like, you know, connect and then ask for a job? So yeah.
Yeah, you know, I don't think it's rude at all to connect with a recruiter. You know, you can connect with every single recruiter. I mean, feel free to. It's not rude to connect, and most recruiters will absolutely accept the connection request. I think that it gets into a rude space when you have a canned email, like it's something that says, hello, thank you for connecting. I was wondering if you have open positions. I work in this. I can send you my resume. Like as a recruiter, I mean, I have close to 30,000 connections. I get, you know, probably 20 to 25 of those today. And, you know, do most of those people line up with anything that I have open? No. You know, do I take every single resume and throw it into the database? Yeah, sure. But at the end of the day, if you're getting somewhere between 5 to 7 of those are data analysts, 3 to 5 of them are software engineers, a couple of cybersecurities, I mean, I suddenly end up with a database of 25 resumes. Am I going to suddenly pick yours out of the 25? Maybe, but again, look at the odds that you're creating and sending that out. And there are going to be a lot of recruiters that just immediately delete it. They're not going to read it. They're just going to accept the connection request. So I think as we talk about, again, targeting exactly what you're trying to do in any particular position, if there's a company that you have applied to, I would say connect with a recruiter from that specific company and say, hello, my name is Lee. I've applied for this position at your company. Thank you for accepting my connection request. I would like to know more about what it is that you do, what it is that the company does. How is it working there? Don't just hop in hot and say, hey, I'm a data analyst. I want to work there. You know, create a conversation. Then it's, you know, at that point, it's, well, you know, I really enjoyed the conversation. I hope to be working together sometime in the future. 9 times out of 10, probably 95 out of 100 times, that recruiter is going to go look up that position. They're going to reach out to the hiring manager and say, hey, I just talked to a guy, Lee, on LinkedIn. Seems like a really nice guy. He's got this type of experience. I think we should, even if it's not their position, they're going to give you a small recommendation. So that's where the targeted positions come in. Again, reach out to every single recruiter that you want to, or not reach out, try to connect with every recruiter that you want to, that's fine, but reach out to the ones that specifically work for the companies that you want to work for.
I echo that wholeheartedly, yes. And a thing about LinkedIn that I've come to know is that it's almost running in fast forward sometimes, right? Because there's so many persons on LinkedIn who want to connect and get different positions, and then there's persons who are looking for those people, right? So one thing that I can say is that Darren really hit it on the head. Be genuine, right? Be genuine. And oftentimes when you're looking to connect with someone, starting from the job is not necessarily, just like Darren said, it's not really the way to go. Starting from the company that they work for is pretty much a really good way to do it. Honestly, that was great, Darren, really good. And when you make those connections, understand that recruiters oftentimes, the worst thing about recruiters, right, and me included, is that we sometimes we don't get back. We've got a lot of people we're talking to, and then there's persons that that we get in touch with, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, man, Max never got back to me. Maybe he just doesn't like me, or maybe he thinks that I'm just not worth it, or whatever. It's typically not the case, really, because we get pointed because we're experts at specific tasks, and sometimes there's more than one of those tasks, right? So sometimes we kind of let things kind of go by the wayside. It's a thing with recruiters. Sorry, honestly, I'm trying to be better at that. But what I do know is that those persons that I've reached out to, and they've expressed, hey, anytime that you want to connect with me or you want to speak about a position, here's my contact information. 3 months later, hey, Max, just wanted to let you know, I see that, there's cities hiring. I see you've posted a couple times. If you want to connect, here's my contact information, right? Like Darren said, 95% of the time we're gonna say, oh man, let me look up Lee and let me see what he's got going on. All right, yes, there's a resume attached. All right, yeah, all right, okay. You know what? Let me see if Joe Waits has got something going on with it. And then I reach out to Lee and say, hey Lee, thanks so much for being a great partner. I've forwarded your information to this manager, and hopefully we can get you something going. That's the best way to do that, really. That really is. Good job, Darren. That was right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Max, you play your role well. Question for you, gentlemen. Do you guys utilize LinkedIn to promote jobs? Because I've seen lots of recruiters nowadays, I don't know, because the market is so hot, posting lots of openings on their boards. Would that help them if they connect with you or to look for a job? Is that a way to search for a job?
Yeah, I absolutely think that a lot of recruiters use LinkedIn, and not just in a sense where you're posting to LinkedIn, you're posting a job to LinkedIn under your LinkedIn recruiter account. But, there are a lot of recruiters that would just post it on their feeds and say, hey, I'm looking for a data scientist, or I'm looking for a data engineer or a software engineer, et cetera, whatever the position may be, finance, et cetera. They'll say, I'm just looking for this role, bachelor's degree, 1 to 2 years of experience, entry level. Let me know if you're interested. So LinkedIn, I know it's kind of boring if you're going to compare it to the other social media sites, right? Stories are kind of boring. Nobody's doing anything interesting, it seems, for the most part, right? But it is something to get onto, even if it's just 15, 20 minutes a day, and just scroll through, see if anybody is talking about anything that's interesting. Read some of the news stories, post some stuff yourself, get people kind of interested in what you're doing, and you'll see that there will be recruiters that reach out to you, as you start to get more of a presence on there. Respond to some things, comment on some things, be a little bit more active on LinkedIn, and you'll definitely see the results.
Thank you, Darren.
And if I also can just impart, I know that we're getting close to time here. Ladies and gentlemen, as entering the workforce is a really challenging and kind of can't navigate it. It's really kind of, just luck of the draw. I want you to know that there's a standard that you can kind of look to as the cycle of what being a candidate really is, right? By most standards, there's a thing called a candidate life cycle. I want you guys to look that up, right? A candidate life cycle. And the reason why I want you to do that is because once you find, sometimes they're in like pie charts, sometimes they're pie graphs, sometimes they're timelines or what have you. I want you to look up what a candidate life cycle is, and I want you to find where you are at in the candidate life cycle, okay? And when you do find where you're at in the candidate life cycle, prepare yourself for the next phases. How you prepare yourself for the next phase is a couple of different ways. Is you're going to use your resume, even if it's only academic. You're going to use your resume, and you're going to be able to know where you are at and how you're going to progress in the candidate life cycle, because an informed candidate to a recruiter on where they're at and they accept expectations the right way is a very valuable candidate for us. Extremely valuable candidate for us, because we can partner better with someone who understands kind of the dynamic. And it changes from company to company, but really just kind of like the broad paintbrush would be the candidate life cycle. Okay. Do that and try to make it personal to you, and let any recruiter know, not necessarily, hey, I got the candidate life cycle, but just let them know, hey, I understand the process. Is this the process? Because they will, I promise you, they'll regurgitate the process to you. Well, the process is that, right? So when we have a candidate that is able to understand those things, we can really kind of advocate for them a little bit better, because they have an understanding of how it is to get into our process, and we're kind of walking the walk together. And that's valuable. It is really valuable. It sets a tone for the recruiter to really be strengthening the ability for the hiring manager to know, hey, this person really gets it. This person understands, how they are looked at and valued, and what we're going to be doing and the phases involved. So just look that up, try to use that. It's a small piece of what I have to offer.
Thank you, Max.
You're welcome.
Min, I've seen it that you had your hand on. You still have a question?
Yes. Just a very quick question. So as mentioned by Lee, he talked about linkage, right? Like, I know there's a lot of people like myself are struggling to find job on LinkedIn. So with linkage, so like for example, I applied to Delta Airlines as a let's say they have a job because as a customer service like analyst or data analyst, like for example, and I applied to there, right? I fill out my applications and I submit my resume based on the job description, not lies or anything. Like try to allow my resume tell the truth with the match job description. And I applied 3 times, and I try not to apply, like every job. I try to apply job that I can possible work on it, or maybe get trained to work like on it. So my application keep get rejected. So I try to reach out to that recruiter that represent Delta Airlines. They say that they look into my application or my resume, and they try to send me out like interview, but they never do. So how can I like approach like that? And my resume keep get rejected with like whenever I apply to Delta Airlines, my resume keep get rejected. Like I'm not sure why, on my application just in general just keep get like rejected. Like even though I met there, like I try to match like the requirement of what Delta Airlines asked for, but it keep get rejected. And it sometimes get very frustrated to apply to a company that I really want to work with, like for example, and try to reach out to a recruiter, try to ask for their feedback, like, hey, like why is my application keep get like rejected, and also get annoyed by them. And as you guys like mentioned like about like a recruiter get back to you, I would love to have a recruiter get back like to me and provide some sort of like feedback. So how can I improve, or maybe land a job at Delta Airlines, just like for example.
You can start this one if you want, Max.
Go ahead, Darren.
Okay. I don't know if Max started. You were muted if you did.
My bad. Okay. So one thing that that it seems like that you're experiencing is you're getting communication from the company. Did you? Let me ask you a question first, right? Did you receive a phone call and speak to someone, or maybe had an interview at any time?
So I remember my very first application when I applied. That was back in 2018. That was like an intern. So they sent out a two like interview like process. So I went through all my two interview, and then my final interview they cancel out. So they cancel like that job like position just in general, because someone that I know who worked there, they put me as an internal, right, recruiting. So I skipped that application part. But that person do provide me the recruiter where I can contact for futures like references. Let's say, so the person say, hey, 2019, you can apply the intern again. So I did apply the intern again, and I tried to reach out to a recruiter, but that recruiter read my message on LinkedIn, but ignored it, like don't provide any feedback. And then 2020, I sent him again, but now that person is changing to a different company. It's no longer with Delta Airlines. So, like, sometimes it gets very kind of frustrated to reach out to someone where you being nice, like, whenever it comes to communication, I try to be very clear and very nice, not, like kind of rude, say, hey, or like I try to use a very professional like wording to allow the recruiter to like respond back. But like it just filter out as a they don't even want to read my like message or like email. Like that's all. Like I wish that you guys can be my recruiter. Like that would be so like wonderful. But I guess like it's what it is, like what it is.
Let me kind of just say that if you and I were working together for a position, with Citi, there would be some feedback that I want to impart is that yes, you're extremely professional. I agree that using professional wording is awesome. I would have to really be able to sell your ability to the hiring manager of what you bring to the table in terms of completion of tasks, your past and everything. And this is not, please don't take this as a knock on anything other than, it's not a knock. It's just that it's something that I want to get out, that I want you to understand, is that the hiring manager would have the final say on who they want to have in the position. And they consider, at least in most of the places I've been, they consider a couple of different things. How is that person going to not just be able to complete their task, but how are they going to be able to communicate to stakeholders, right? Your communication is not bad. It's not bad, but what they're going to want to know is if asked specific questions that they get in trouble on, or they don't have data, how are they going to handle that, right? And is that going to be able to be well received? And it's really not, it's not necessarily a thing where you're doing bad, but again, the candidates that they're going through may have just a smoother communication to the stakeholders, right? So I would want to be able to package all of your ability and what you can deliver on, and go for a role in which you not only can get into the company, but then develop also in the way that you communicate to folks, right? So stakeholders to peers, everything, right? Because you do well. I'm not saying you're doing bad, but what I'm trying to say is that sometimes those persons who make those decisions, they get frightened that just because this might not be your first language, that you're going to get some kind of in the weeds with something, and you won't be able to communicate very well out of it, or at least satisfy the need, right? And believe me when I tell you, I've helped so many people that have had, as they're trying, and you articulate well enough that I would give you a chance, right? I would definitely say yes, let's give him a shot, because I think his peers could really be of help. And we want to be inclusive, and we want to say, You don't have to speak perfect English to be a part of our organization. I just want to just be really honest and really clear and respectful as I can be, is that communication verbally, I would suggest something like Toastmasters, becoming a part of Toastmasters, because there you have a forum where they would love to have you speak. They want you to speak. They want you to continue to evolve in your articulation and be able to enunciate things correctly. And there's no bad, it's all positive. Toastmasters is a very positive organization. They're all over the globe, and they really want their attendees to succeed. So that's just my takeaway. That's my understanding. And I'm sorry that Delta has not decided, that they should honor your abilities, your talent, and your tenacity, right, of trying to get into Delta, because not everybody's like that, and they should be wanting to include you. But if it's that portion of it that you have an area of an opportunity to kind of work and grow, and I know that it's not easy, so I thank you for sharing that time with me. But understand that maybe Delta is not the right place for you, because if, let's say, you did get a position at Delta and it just completely was not the position, you know what I mean? Like they weren't willing to work with you, they weren't tolerable, things that you don't want to experience on the job. You really don't, right? So I would say, if you're really bent on getting into Delta, that might be an area of opportunity, but try to understand that you're able to pivot. You still are worth, just because they're rejecting you doesn't mean that you're not worth it. You're still worth everything that you want in life. So maybe not Delta, and that's okay, because there's other jobs out there. All right. And I encourage you to connect with me on LinkedIn. You can, I will accept your connection. We can work together every now and again on resources. I'd love to have you as a connection on LinkedIn, and anything I can do to help and provide assistance for you, I can commit to at least giving you some pointing you in the right direction and giving you that assistance. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, 100% agreed. I don't really have anything to add. I think you covered almost everything that I would have been looking for. I think that the writing is kind of on the wall for that. I think kind of with the track of what happened, just like Max said, if I was going to be really honest, I would assume that that's what happened, is that someone left notes in the system saying that we have a candidate that is very strong technically, but has some slight communication issues, and I think that they moved forward in the interview process based on the fact that you were strong technically. But it ultimately does come down to, like Max said, the hiring manager's decision. And they probably just said that, we have other candidates who are just as technically skilled, who have a little bit of a higher communication level status. So I would, just like Max said, encourage you to please apply for other positions. It is frustrating to have a company that you really want to get into. And even to really say, Max said he worked for Google, and I was like, oh, because I was trying to get into Google for a long time. But, there are always going to be companies that you want to get into that seem exciting and do the exact same thing that you want to do, and it's just the perfect place for you, and it just doesn't work out. And that's not an excuse to, or that's not a reason to think, well, this is not for me. I mean, there are other companies that do the exact same thing that you're looking for, that probably provides you with a better work environment, provides you with better benefits, an easier life, work-life balance. I mean, there are other companies that will give you exactly what you're looking for, and it may not be the ideal name, but if there is a situation like what you're in right now, where you just can't get a contact back, it sucks. You can wallow for a day on it, but you got to continue forward and work on some other ones and hope that maybe they get at you a little bit later, like they said they would. They have your name in the system. Maybe they will contact you later on. But what's probably going to happen is 10 years later in your career, you're going to look back and see other people that started at Delta or at the airline the same time that you were, who are in the exact same position, and you've gone much higher and greater than you would have. So, continue the drive.
Nice. Thank you.
Absolutely. Good question.
And at the end of the day, you want to work for the company that wants you.
That's right. Very true.
Very important. I know we passed to 30, but we had so many questions. We appreciate you very much. Any wisdom, any last words that you want to convey to the students? Darren, Max?
Darren, you can close out. I'll, unless you want the last word, sir,
No, I think this was an awesome process. I really enjoyed the questions. I think that each and every one of you has something to provide to the world, has something to provide to the workforce, whether it be, a situation where you end up as a CTO of some company, whether it be a situation where you get in as a data analyst and you work there for 15 years, you have something to provide and you are going to. So understand, as we've been talking about that throughout this entire call, understand what it is that you want to do, understand and know your worth and what you can provide, and find the company that's going to allow for you to achieve those dreams that you have, and not just allow for you to be at a position to help them achieve their dreams. So always continue to drive and find the place that you need to be.
Thank you.
Very well said. And I'll just say, I'll echo those sentiments. It really is awesome that we have, this new generation coming up that is really concerned with the well-being of external life and with work life, right? We have this awesome culture coming into Verition where there is the inclusion, there is we can work better together kind of understanding. I really like that very much. And what I would just really want for you guys to know is that no matter how long you are involved in any area, if I could always ask that anyone who is really genuine and really wants the knowledge that you have, share that with them. From now until after you retire, anyone that looks at you starry-eyed and is like really thirsty, can you help me? It's not just helping them, it's helping yourself. It really is, right? So just that whole kind of cliche, each one, teach one, seriously, right? Look to someone who wants that information and provide that area of safe space for them. Because if we all kind of turn around and do that, it really does make for a really inclusive and very, very productive way of life, both professionally and personally. So thank you so much for your attention. Again, connect with myself on LinkedIn, Max Salcido, Max with 2 X's. If you guys need anything from me, just drop me a line, let me know how we can best coordinate.
Thank you so much, Max. And Darren and Max, if you guys don't mind to share your LinkedIn account in the chat, I would appreciate that.
I just put mine in there.
Oh, thank you. You're ahead of the game.
I'm on my phone.
Drop it in there for you, Max.
Say it again?
This guy is going to do that for you.
Cool, thank you. Mahalo.
So on behalf of Fulton County Center of Excellence, I really want to thank you for participating in this panel. It was tremendous help. I've seen lots of thank you notes in the chat. Please connect, and your wisdom is really, really appreciated. And your experience, years of experience and mistakes, and all that helps other people tremendously. We thank you so much.
You're welcome. You guys have a great day.
Guys.
Thank you, Max. Thank you, Darren.
Bye-bye.
Students, please stay on the call.